Hello my crafty friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a process video using the Beautiful Flowers stamp set. First up, I'm going to take this piece of A2 size Bristol Smooth cardstock. I use Strathmore. I'm going to put it on top of my Waffle Flower Media Mat, which is going to make it easier to ink blend because it kind of grips the paper so it doesn't move around a whole lot. Now we're going to do a rainbow. I love rainbows. So we're going to start with the Distress Oxide color in Candied Apple. And I'm going to use a mini distress ink blending tool from Tim Holtz, and I'm going to blend that color down the left side of the cardstock. Next, I'm taking the Distress Oxide color in Spiced Marmalade, and I'm going to blend that right against the edge of the candied apple that we just laid down. And as you can see, I'm barely having to hold this down and it's staying in place. I'm sorry for the wobbly camera, and then I'm going to take the one that had the candy apple on it and use it again. Now we're going to use Squeezed Lemonade for our yellow. I usually use mustard seed, but I wanted something a bit brighter, and this fit the bill perfectly. So that's going to go against the Spiced Marmalade. Then I'm going to take the sponge from Spiced Marmalade and kind of blend it all together to make it a bit more seamless. Next, I'm going to take my green, which is going to be Lucky Clover. Not my usual green, but I like it. And I'm going to blend that again against the last color, which was Squeezed Lemonade. And then I'm going to take the Squeezed Lemonade blender and blend those two together. The next color I'm going to go with is Broken China, one of my favorite blues. It's a nice light blue, but it's really pretty. And I blend that along the edge of the green, which is Lucky Clover. And I want to make sure I get everything really nice and saturated so it's going to be bright for the last part of our, trial. The last color I'm using is Wilted Violet. I'm just going to blend that along the very edge. I always run out of room when it comes to the purples. I really need to work on that. Now I'm just going to use my Broken China dauber and blend that out. I'm going to move that, and now I'm going to take a baby wipe and wipe down my media mat so that it doesn't stain. And this is a great little thing and it's perfect, and now we're going to set it aside because we're going to use it later in the video. Next, we are going to heat set the Distress Oxide inks so I can heat emboss on them in just a minute. And I like to use my Wagner heat tool, which I actually talked about in my first video on this channel. I'll be sure to either put it in the cards or link it down below if you want to check that out. And next I'm going to pull out my Misty, which already has the big flower stamp from the Beautiful Flowers stamp set in it because I did a test run with this card before I started filming it because I wanted to make sure it would go right. So we're going to open that up, and I know where I lined it up last time. I'm going to make sure that it's going to be that the red is going from left to right with the flower on the bottom. Line that up with the one and against the far side. And then I'm going to hold it down with all of the magnets because this is a large stamp and it's really sticky, and so I don't want it to shift. Then I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool and wipe down the area so hopefully we won't get any stray embossing powder. Now I'm going to ink up the stamp with the Versamark embossing ink, and I'm really going to ink this stamp up well. I mean, I want it really juicy so I can get the best impression that I can possibly get. Next, we're going to do something that Jennifer McGuire refers to as stamp CPR. And I'm just going to press down as hard as I can and use as much pressure as possible to get the perfect image. Walking my fingers over the image, just really pressing down because I want this image to look good and I really don't want to have to stamp it twice. And I'm looking at it and it's good to go, so I'm going to take it out of my Misty and prepare to put embossing powder on it. I'm going to be using the Wow Ultra Fine Clear Embossing Powder. I got mine from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm just going to sprinkle that over where the stamp is. And then I'm going to dust off any excess, get that little corner that I kind of missed with the first go around. I'm going to close that up so I don't get any more on my desk. And then I'm going to take a little brush and brush off all of the excess powder that I can see that's stuck to the card. But it didn't seem to be that much until I heat set it. And then I'm going to actually wipe the excess embossing powder away with a Swiffer dry cloth. These work great especially with glitter. Then I'm going to take my Wagner heat tool, let it heat up for a second or two, and then I'm going to take it to my project and heat it so it's nice and clear and glossy. What you can't see is that I'm tilting my head every which way to make sure I don't see granules of where it hasn't melted, just so I can make sure that everything is nice and clear and glossy and, melted. Once that's all heat set and good, I'm going to move on to our next step, which I'm going to need the Media Mat for again. I'm going to take one of the mini ink blenders and put the Distress Oxide Black Soot sponge on it. I'm going to take the black soot ink and I'm just going to completely cover my card front. Sorry for the shaking, I'm really, really sorry. But I'm just going to cover it. And the color will show through just a tiny bit through the black where it's not even heat embossed, but that's okay. It doesn't really bother me, it's barely noticeable. And so I'm going to do that until I think it looks good. Then I'm going to close up my ink so it doesn't dry out. Then I'm going to take a microfiber towel and I'm going to wipe off the area where it's heat embossed, where it's going to resist the ink. And see how bright and beautiful that is? But, oops, we come to a problem. We had a lot of leftover embossing powder that stuck to where it shouldn't stick to. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. And eventually what I decide to do is I'm going to use the one that I made earlier and use that for the card that I'm making because it is for a customer and I want it to be nice. So I'm going to switch them out and you can see the difference between the two of them. This image is nice and crisp and it's just as vibrant as the other one, but you can definitely see the difference. So I'm going to take that and now I'm going to set that aside and we're going to die cut our sentiment, which is the scripty Happy Birthday die from Simon Says Stamp. The words are going to be cut from black glitter tonic cardstock and the shadow is going to be cut from some Tim Holtz metallic cardstock, which is kind of like a coppery color. Next I'm going to use some washi tape to just tape down my shadow die cut. I can't really do it with the words because it's glitter cardstock. Next I'm going to pull out my Big Kick, which I don't really know the difference between Big Kick and Big Shot, but works great for me. And it was a little less expensive too. And I'm going to run both of these pieces through. I like to go both ways to make sure it's really well cut, and I use a metal shim as well, especially with intricate words like that Happy Birthday. I'm going to pull that off of the plate. Next I'm going to pop the Happy Birthday words out of the cardstock, so separate the positive from the negative. And it cut really well. I was really surprised. It was my first time using that die. Now I'm going to use my tonic poke tool. I'm just going to poke out areas that still have the holes filled and just poke that area out so that I can get ready to glue it down. Now I'm just going to clean those off and move the die cut out of the way, and then I'm going to pop out the shadow die cut so that I have everything kind of set and ready to go so I can start putting it together. Now I'm going to use my reverse tweezers and flip my die cut sentiment over, and I'm going to use my Ranger Multimedia Matte Glue, which is my favorite glue for this stuff, and I'm going to outline the entire sentiment, which I won't show you because it's boring. Once all of the glue is applied, I'm going to put the sentiment on top of the shadow, and I'm just going to kind of press it down and make sure it's nice and adhered. And then I'm going to look for something a little bit heavier to lay on top of it so that it can dry while I do other things. But before I do that, I'm going to take my Marvy Jewel Picker and put the little dot over the eye. And then once that's done, I'm going to put Craft Tacky Glue onto the back of the full sentiment so that I can attach it to the card front. And then I'm going to put something heavy on top of it. Sorry about that, guys. Didn't mean to confuse you. So I'm going to line that up, kind of center it. And I think it looks pretty center there. Looks good. And so we're going to set something on top of it. And for that something, I used my Filofax Pocket Planner. Next, I'm going to work on the inside of the card. I'm going to be using the Love and Hugs sentiment from the Beautiful Flowers stamp set. And I'm going to use my VersaFine Onyx Black pigment ink to stamp it out. I'm going to put it on an acrylic block. And I'm using an A2 card base, side folding card base made out of Neenah 110 pound Solar Crest white cardstock. So there's the VersaFine. And then right before I stamp it down, I noticed that it's not completely straight on the block, so I'm just going to go through and fix that. Get ink on my fingers, but I fix it. and then I stamp it down again, and I stamp it into the center of the card. Now, I can't just leave it with just a sentiment on it. I just can't. So next, after I put this stamp away, I'm going to flip the stamp set over and pick a flower, and I'm going to put that one onto a slightly larger acrylic block. I'm going to pull out the Wilted Violet Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to ink the stamp up and stamp the flower in the left-hand corner of this card. Now, since that didn't stamp perfectly, I'm going to use another card base. I'm going to stamp the purple again, make sure I get a really good impression. So here we go again. And we got it this time. Perfect. And then I'm going to clean that off. And then I'm going to take the VersaFine Onyx Black again in the Love and Hugs Sentiment stamp, and I'm going to stamp that again in the center of the card, making sure I line it up this time nice and straight. Then I'm going to, VersaFine. Then I'm going to ink it up. I'm going to stamp it right in the center, or as center as I can get. And I'm happy with that, so I clean off the stamp, and I go and I put it back onto the stamp sheet, because I do not want to lose these. I would be very, very upset if I did so. And I set that aside, and I was going to put the front on, but then I realized I should put my handmade stamp, which I get from Bossy Jossie, I'll link her down below, on the back of my card. I always put these on the backs of my cards, so if people like them and they want to buy them, they can contact me. And so, see, that's what it looks like. I really, really love the Bossy Jossie stamps. And see, I got a smudge, but that's okay, not to worry. I have a Tombow sand eraser, and I'm just going to rub that against the area, and you will see no more smudge. It's magic, I'm telling you. Magic. Now I'm going to take my card front, I'm going to place it on the front of our card. And so, I'm going to take that, line it up, then I'm going to take my favorite dry adhesive, which is 1/2 inch score tape, or 1/4 inch, but here I'm going to use 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to outline around the back of the card front. I know you can rip it, but I just prefer to cut it with some scissors. Then, to take the backing off, I'm going to use my craft blade, because I have very short nails and I have a lot of trouble getting the backing off with my nails because they are so short, and this craft blade really makes it so much easier to do. And now I'm going to line it up with the card base and apply it. There are a few white areas showing, but later I went back with the Black Soot Distress Oxide ink and covered that up. No problem. Easy to fix. But thank you guys so much for stopping by today. If you liked today's video, please subscribe and consider liking this video. I'll see you later. Bye!